Steel and Flame, Book 1 of the Guilds of Avlaan series is available on Amazon. If you like fluffy wolf lolly protagonists and Japanese light novels, follow the link below to check it out.
Konnichiwa minasan, Daigo desu. Today I wanted to talk to you about some observations I noticed while exploring both the network and the writer's system, and it's about this thing you call lolicon. I understand it is shortened from a term called Lolita complex and refers to an interest in women who are youthful and sometimes even younger than the men who are interested in them. And I have seen it causes quite a lot of controversy among some of you, who sincerely I think are unintelligent. I think it is time someone from the past has a talk to you about it, to tell you something. Back when I was alive, and in physical form, that was a normal man. An entirely and completely normal man, liking younger women who are already capable of bearing child, has always been normal. And in fact, I would say what is abnormal is a preference for actual children and women who are incapable of reproduction. Just because the women you like are... Well, hold on, before someone says something stupid. By incapable of reproduction, I mean too old to reproduce, postmenopausal, elderly. That's abnormal. For a man to like women who are younger than himself, particularly women with characteristics which could be considered adorable and endearing, and who already have a body capable of bearing child, has always been the norm. It's entirely natural. After all, we are both animals, you and I. Yes, you humans are animals no matter how much you reject it. And it is in your human nature to proliferate and reproduce, as much as it is in mine. This is strange that you react with such a strong outcry to works of fiction depicting what is pretty normal and has been through centuries. Of course, each culture has decided throughout the ages when it is right for a woman to marry, when it is right for her to form a family. But that doesn't mean those drawings are harmful or depictions of something wrong. After all, the bodies of those characters have clearly very normal appearance for a woman in reproductive age. And remember that women with slender bodies are still beautiful and capable of reproducing. Even though you might consider it immoral to the standards of your culture, whatever it is, or even though you think a number on paper matters more than biology, when it comes to fiction in particular, it is absurd to react in such a way. Of course, I know things change, people change, cultures change, and you should be a law-abiding citizen of your country wherever you are, but that doesn't mean biology changes just because the laws say so. What you should worry about are those who are attracted to actual prepubescent, incapable of reproducing children, and people who are attracted to postmenopausal women, not specifically only postmenopausal, but to the point of senile dementia. I think I have seen a few cases of people who break the law with such women. That's sickening if you ask me. The elderly are venerable and respectable. They are not objects of your pleasure, and especially not when their mental capabilities are not there precisely and they have reverted to the thought processes of an infant. Same with children, who by definition are those who are yet to reach puberty, who are not capable of reproduction. Infants, for example. They are mentally unprepared for many of the responsibilities related to human reproduction, and they are mentally unprepared to the complexities of such a situation. You should worry about people who want to influence them in that regard, regardless of context, and especially those who want to manipulate them into adopting atypical behavior in that regard for their own political gain. Instead of worrying about drawings and works of fiction which depict what is entirely normal for a human male, or for a fox like me, you should worry about people who have inclinations for things that have been abnormal throughout history and that produce no child. I know quite well some cultures have considered that the norm too, particularly two cultures which are older than myself considered it entirely normal and reasonable for a man to engage in such activities with a younger male who is yet to reach puberty. I think the term they used was catamite. That's entirely wrong and disgusting if you ask me, not because of two men loving each other. That has occurred even in my nation. In fact, some of the most heroic samurai were inclined to favor both men and women. The problem is when someone who has yet to reach puberty is involved. I disapprove entirely of that because it is not healthy and comes with many risks, both physical and mental. Not to mention, it serves no purpose other than the gain, often, of only one of the persons involved. But in regard to those drawings, as I say, which depict normal male nature, if you think that's wrong, you think men, particularly normal heterosexual men, are wrong. And if you think men are wrong, I sincerely think you are a monster. You are evil and should be stopped. No, I am not being used as a mouthpiece by the author, the writer, even though he agrees with me entirely on this. As I said, I come from a previous time in history where things were extremely different, and the idea of a man, for example, let's say in his 20s, courting a woman notably younger than himself was seen as entirely normal. And in fact, generally speaking, the legal age of marriage in most countries ranged between the ages of 10 and 15. Nowadays it is often higher, but in some countries it remains as low. Of course, you might have your complaints about it, but my point is that women who had already become capable of bearing child have always been attractive to heterosexual males and have often been within the range of a legal marriage. Meanwhile, those who are yet to reach reproductive age have never been such, except for in cases in which a culture was decaying already, as exemplified by the Roman Empire and the Catamites, and in the case of the postmenopausal and senile, while there is no law forbidding them to marry or engage in such acts. It is generally considered atypical for them to be attractive, and in the case of those who have reached the point of dementia, it is certainly illegal in most cases. The act of taking advantage on them, it is wrong, because they are incapable mentally of understanding what's happening. But it seems the modern era is entering in a situation similar to the fall of the Roman Empire, favoring catamites and acts with the senile people, while forbidding and turning controversial what is an entirely natural reproductive inclination. Personally, as I said, I agree with the writer. and I actually like the slender shape of what you now call a lolly. But if you ask me, based on my experience, I incline to prefer an ampler bosom. Sincerely, an entirely flat body is not nearly as attractive as a curvaceous shape. I think the writer agrees to some extent that entirely flat is not the best, but he disagrees with me entirely on what is the ideal. To me, a body with a very well-defined hourglass shape is better. Wide hips capable of bearing a child and an ample bosom have always been a sign of fertility, and perhaps because I am more animal than human, I tend to prefer a very fertile look. Anyway, I don't remember getting married, and if I ever did, she's probably dead, so I will move on. Now, with nothing else to say, I hope you enjoy your healthy habits instead of continuing the tendency of a decaying culture. May you have a nice day.